Okay, part 2 to this video. Yeah, I will admit right now, as I'm on the precipice of releasing this album, I am having more blocks than ever. I'm having more than I've ever had before. I don't know what it is about this album that is just dredging up all of this resistance. And of course, life is just, I've gotten incredibly busy with work, which of course I'm not passing out because, you know, we're a lot of people are really worried about what's coming and what's going on with the economy, and you know, all of the chain reactions set in place by the tariffs and inflation, hyperinflation, and the markets are about to crash. People are scared to spend money. I think companies are just really scared about what's coming, and so people are just scared right now about money. And I don't want to come from a fear place, but I feel lucky to have a lot of work that's been coming up. So I'm taking it, and I'm just trying to trust, because I'm not I'm not able to really put a lot of time into this release. But I'm going to do it anyways. I'm not going to let it, of course there's this like, oh, postpone it, but I can't. That's what I've been doing over and over again with this. And it's keeping me focused in the middle of all this, you know, quote unquote work I'm doing. It's keeping me very focused on this bigger picture of where I'm at and what's going on in the world. It's so easy to get caught up and be of the flesh, right? But this album is keeping me focused on my spirit, which is exactly what music has always been for me. It's been like a life raft in a world that wants to drown you under the waves of just materialism and consumerism, and thinking that, you know, status or competition or all these, you know, mind-controlled mindsets that you can just spend your entire life chasing your own tail and not even know that's what you're doing, right? You don't even know. You think you're living a real life, but you're not. You're just doing what you're told to do by some sort of, I would say, malevolent force that is trying to disempower you. I don't speak well about how I really think about this world, because I think our language is booby-trapped, and it's very difficult to talk about what I think is more of a bigger, more truthful reality that this world is somehow a part of, but not all of. And many people want to pretend that this world is all there is, or even if they think there's something more, live for today. So many people are in this mindset of do what thou will is the whole of the law, which was Aleister Crowley. But I read an interesting post about how that comes down from, that's a longer tradition than just from Aleister Crowley. Though I think he influenced many of our rock and roll stars and our musicians and many people who really just are out for themselves. And they might be very successful, and they might be, you know, convinced that they're the top of the pile, but that is, in my opinion, always been a very miserable, surface, temporary existence. And I've been for a very long time in search of something more lasting, more permanent, and I have found it. But I'm not always willing to talk about it or share it, especially here on social media, because, listen, I kind of hate social media right now. I kind of hate the whole culture, but that's a side topic. What I will say is that that's exactly what I like about the song I Dared, which is what is coming out on 6/22. It's the single I Dared and the album I Dared, right? So part of this trilogy series is I always take one single off the album, and that's the single that the album is named for, and it always ends up being a 2-word name. And listen, all this stuff just kind of happened. I didn't really plan it. It just kind of happened. So Reach Up is the first album, All Love is the second, and then I Dared is the third. Now, what does I Dared mean exactly? What does the song mean? And then how does that really encompass the whole album? And what is that progression of Reach Up, All Love, and I Dared, right? So let me just start with the present album, I Dared. It's really multifaceted, and that's why it's hard for me to talk about. You really need to listen to the song, see where it hits you, because I'm a really multidimensional person. I think multidimensionally. It's a curse and a blessing that I kind of see a lot of different perspectives at once, and that can be what's difficult to speak. Now, if I'm talking to you one-on-one, I'm better because I can sort of, I have a intuition about where you're at, and I can kind of connect, and that is in truth on that dimension. But there's all these other dimensions going on too that are truthful. And so when I'm speaking through social media, it's much harder because I don't know where you are at, whoever's listening to this right now. So it becomes much harder for me to figure out how to communicate and connect. So I just have to speak with the idea that this is just one part of the story. I dared is sort of the idea that at some point in time, I decided to get off the road. I decided to take the road less traveled, right? And I decided that even though all of my friends were kind of marching in a similar direction, Ant's marching, shout out to Dave Matthews, they all do it the same, I didn't want to. I wanted to go ahead and take the risk and go out on my own. And it became important to me, not that I succeeded or I started to not care if I succeeded or I failed. What was more important is that I at least did it the way that I thought it should be done, that I went ahead and walked in my own integrity rather than trying to copy or do templates or do what everybody else is doing, all that kind of stuff. That was a decision I made. And I say I dared because that's not the easiest decision to make. Okay, when you do that, you can have friends, family, a lot of people come against you. You don't have people believing in you. You get ostracized. You don't fit anywhere. It's very lonely. You can feel persecuted. I mean, there's a lot of things that can happen to you when you decide to go ahead and get out of the mind-controlled sheep masses and question things and go your own direction. So that's why I called it I Dared. But there's an interesting line in it that says, you might not understand, but trust me, it's legit. And that's just this idea that people don't even know what's legit because, you know, we get caught up in this idea of like, oh, I dared, I'm going to go out on my own. Well, that means I'm going to like put all my chips in on music and I'm going to become this like super famous musician. And you see like I dared and my dreams came true. That's like this version of it that I'm so tired of. But I'm not going to say there wasn't times that I wasn't falling into that myself. I have mentioned before that my ego gets involved, but that's a very sophomoric, juvenile understanding of this world when you're still in that place of like, I'm just going to dream my dream and follow my dreams. And there's something deeper going on here. There's something more real than just that, because once again, that's still like do what thou wilt is the whole of the law, right? You're still just pretty much caught up in yourself, and go ahead and go for it. You know, a lot of people are successful, some aren't. It still takes more courage than maybe a lot of people who just take safe choices. I give you that. But at the end of the day, you're still not the legit that I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is a legit where you are embodied. Your spirit is embodied in your incarnation. Like you are your spirit. Your spirit is you. You have done the shadow work to heal traumas that are automatic triggers and get you doing things that you are out of control of, right? Like these compulsive behaviors, or, you know, one of the things that I found is that I kept like repeating certain toxic patterns in my life and I couldn't get out of them, right? So you do the work to get out of these patterns and be back in control of the only thing you have control of really is you, right? You can't really control the world. You can't control other people. I can't control whether or not people like my music, right? But I could control whether or not I was sitting down to do the music, which, trust me, has been a struggle. And it still is a struggle to actually show up and release the music, right? There's a million other things that are calling me. It's so easy to get distracted. And there's so much low self-esteem that we have to heal and overcome to actually step into our own creative power and do the creative work, and then have the courage to put the creative work out there. And then when you're somebody like me who's been putting the creative work out there for over a decade and not really receiving much back, it's almost like I'm putting it out into a void and hearing almost nothing back. Like, I am creating music at this point for me and for my creator. Like, it is about that relationship completely, and it remains that way completely as I'm about to fulfill a promise that I made to both my creator and myself to get through this third album. And I don't know what's going to happen afterwards, but I know that it still is taking a daringness on my part. It's still taking like and I dared, and so many things have been coming up the last few weeks as I face this. It's just been wild. Like, you know, you think you do this shadow work, you think you heal things, and then there's just triggers that come up. But then when you're really standing in your creative command and you understand a bigger picture of why we're here, then you recognize, like, you're thankful. You know, I'm thankful that this album is pulling all this stuff up and making me step into who I am. And that's a lot of what music or a creative pursuit can do, is that it helps you in this process in a very tangible way to meet yourself, to embody it, to ground these sort of milestones that I believe that we're led through when we're a sincere seeker. And we really do want to do the work to become, when you really do want to do the work to become a child of God, you know, to accept your divine inheritance, to play your part in the kingdom. It's multidimensional. It's everything. You have to be all in. All your chips have to be in. And if you are, then you will be led in the most miraculous, wondrous ways, but it won't be without suffering. It won't be without difficulty. It's the road less traveled, and it was never promised that it would be easy. And so on the precipice of releasing this album on 6/22, I am daring once again to just say that this is what and who I am, that this is the honest, authentic struggle that I've been on basically since this trilogy started. But, you know, it started with Reach Up, which was the idea, like, you're just, you know, there's a lot of songs on it that are just really about reaching up out of, you know, this protectiveness of being in the crowd, you know, and kind of starting to reach up for something more than this world. All Love was a phase, not a phase, but a good place to be in, when you just recognize that God is all love, right? That there's goodness, and the wonder of God that continually happens as you're developing a relationship with Him, and He shows up for you over and over and over again in ways that you really can't explain to somebody else, or they're not going to get, and they're not going to be proof of God. They have to do the work themselves, and they have to build that relationship themselves. So that album is a lot about that. And then this final one, I Dared, is about going beyond just that, you know, actually trying to live God's love in this world in the way that is absolutely, through obedience, what He wants from you. And I'm still on that journey. So it's interesting and humbling, you know, to realize that that's maybe why I've been sitting on it this long. And I think, alchemically speaking and symbolically speaking, when I do release this on 6/22, it's probably going to have more to do for my own life than anyone else. But I hope in sincerity that if it can help even one other person, that you'll listen to the album and be inspired in your own life, in your own unique ways. Because I know this true journey, this living a legit life, you don't get the validation from the world. And in many cases, you get the opposite. You get condemnation from the world. But it doesn't make it not legit. Like, you feel it. You feel inside. And I lived for so many years a life that felt fake and on the surface, and around people that were fake and on the surface. And you can get completely caught up in that if you want. But when you feel a legit life, when you feel like you're living for real, that's one of the lyrics of the song. That's what I'm trying to say. And the words come so short, right? The words fall so short. The lyrics and the music come closer to truly expressing what I'm trying to say. But if you don't get it, if you don't have any sort of experience in any of this on your own, then it's going to just sound like words again, right? Because it's just so easy. We live in such an image-based world. So yeah, I think that's all I need to say about it. And I guess what I'm going to do is release that first video, even though the sound isn't great. I'll release that on Tuesday. On 6/22, this is going to be me saying to God, like, thank you, you know? Thank you for everything that you've done to pull me from the depths of despair and being lost and being caught up in my own versions of do what thou will. That is the whole of the law. Right? My own narcissism, my own selfishness, my own traumas, my own confusions, my own anger, my own resentment, you know, for never giving up on me and for giving me the courage to keep walking. And because there's many times I could have given up, but I didn't. And so I'm gonna hit that 6/22 date, and it's gonna be between me and God. So there's no real reason why I need to put this up, which I might not. But if I do, it's merely to inspire other people for their relationship with God. And because maybe there is something to declaring it in public and to other people. Like, I'm not ashamed of this. I'm very private of my relationship with God, because I think in many instances it doesn't really help to try to talk about it with other people. And maybe truthfully, I just don't think it's something you can debate about. I think it's something that you either know or you don't know. And if you don't know, then I pray for you that you do come to know it, because it is something to behold. And I think at the end of the day, there's nothing in my life that anybody would look at from a fleshly level and be like, I'm so envious of you. Trust me, I don't want to front like that on here, okay? If you think that anything, whatever you're probably just projecting on me, okay? Whatever you think I have, because I don't. But what I do have is a relationship with God, and people don't realize how much that's what they're seeking, and how much just because they've decided that something doesn't exist doesn't make it not exist, and that they're still being run by a lot of things that they're unconscious about. And I said this many years ago, but that's what we're dealing with, the conscious versus the unconscious. And so I dared many years ago to say, I want to be conscious, and it's been a very long journey. And I can't say that I'm completely arrived. I'm not going to say that, but I'm going to say that I have way more trust and faith in God that I'll get there with His help. Hallelujah.
I'm wild